something you should probably implement yourself because of ramifications. But if you do, you might miss out on this mission critical caching functionality. I'm going to implement a left pad driver in Pewter. And while that's not a very useful Pewter driver and not something that should be implemented as a Pewter driver, it is a perfect minimal example to show how to make a Pewter driver without getting into something too complicated that might distract from the purpose of this video. In my previous videos, I already have a lot of stuff set up, but I decided in this video, since it's about how to contribute something to Pewter, I'm going to do some of the initial steps as well. So I'm going to start by cloning the Pewter repository here. I'm going to grab my clone URL and clone it into a directory. I'm just going to name it after the date, which right now is 2024-08-20. Typo. So these are all the files in Pewter, and the first thing that you'll have to do is run npm install. Okay, now that the repository is cloned, I'm going to run npm run start, except in my case specifically, I'm going to add no var runtime equal to 1 because I have a /var/pewter folder that I don't want to use. And I think that's it. It'll say the database has been updated to version whatever, 24 right now, and that's because there was no database before, so it was version -1. And it's going to print the URL here to cpewter. I have a Chromium window here where I'm going to open that. And it's going to take me to a temporary account. There's an issue open to add a flag to disable temporary accounts, so you can imagine when that's enabled, you'd see the login screen right away. And I'm going to log in as the admin user. The terminal gets a little funny when you resize it, but if I make that a bit smaller, I can see my admin password is E7E4DEE0, and it's okay that I'm saying that out loud on a video because this is just a disposable clone that I'm making. And once you log in, you'll see that you should have your own Pewter instance running. Now that I'm logged in as the admin user, I can show how drivers are invoked. There's only one driver I can show right now because I don't have keys added in this instance for different services like AWS Textract or OpenAI chat completions. So I'm just going to show the KV store driver. If I reload the page, we'll see there's a bunch of requests to an endpoint called call. And most of these are for the interface Pewter KV store. And this will be the built-in key value store that the GUI uses to store user preferences like the language and whether or not a clock is shown in the taskbar and that sort of thing. Now I'm going to do a manual fetch call in the console itself. And to do that, I have a template in the source code somewhere. So if I shut off the server here just to get the directory that Pewter's running in, I'll just start it back up and open a new terminal and cd there and open VS Code. And I'm probably going to have to tell VS Code that I trust the authors, which is me and other Pewter contributors. So it's kind of a silly question. It didn't ask me this time. That's odd. Anyhow, oh, there we are. There it is. I believe the template that I'm looking for is in a file called requests.md. Requests.md. There's one in Pewter AI and there's one in test drivers. I'm gonna grab this one and copy this and paste it in my element inspector over here, that's struggling a little bit because this laptop isn't the best performing. I need to type allow pasting and paste that. This is not going to be a blob, this is going to be JSON, so I'm going to do that. And I made a mistake already. That wasn't the driver I wanted to use. There's a driver called hello world, and it implements a method called greet. Actually, there's an interface called hello world on the driver, which is also called hello world. If a driver and an interface have the same name, I don't actually need to specify this, but for the purpose of demonstration, I will. And subject is world. So see, success is true, result, hello world. and that is the Hello World driver. And we can see how that's implemented as well to help figure out how to implement our own pewter driver. This is the Hello World service in source slash backend slash source slash services, and it implements two interfaces. One of them is called version, which just reports a version number, or I should say it implements get version, which is a method that returns a version number. And it also implements the Hello World interface, which implements a method called greet, which returns a greeting based on who you told it to greet. The interface for implementations of Hello World is described here in interfaces.js. Our scaffolding around this is going to look a bit different because this is older code, but the structure of the object in here remains the same. There's a description for the interface and a mapping of methods. In this case, we have one method called greet with a description and a mapping of parameters. All the parameters in Pewter drivers are named parameters, so these methods never have ordered arguments. That's just to make things clearer. You can create an SDK that wraps these methods and has ordered parameters. That's fine, but these are always named. And the result similarly just has a specification of what kind of return type the result will be. It might be something like string. It might be something like stream with content type set to image, or something like that. I'm going to start actually by making a module. The Hello World service is in core module, which a lot of things in Pewter are, but a lot of the newer things that we're going to add are going to be separated into modules, and we're going to try to move some of these services into modules. So this is a better approach for the time being. I'm going to do that in Ranger because I'm a lot more comfortable with Ranger than the file management of the VS Code sidebar, which I find a little difficult to work with. I'm going to go into source, backend, source, and there is a directory in here called modules. There's broadcast for notifications, the Pewter AI module with a lot of our AI drivers, and there's also test drivers, some specific things for self-hosted. So two of these modules are housing drivers, and I'm going to make another one for our left pad driver because it does not belong anywhere. So it's going to have its very own Pewter module. And I'm going to create two files in here. One is going to be the left pad module. This is going to be a very small file. It's just some boilerplate to register the service. And I'm going to add a left pad service as well, which I think I just did, but I ran the command wrong. Left pad service.js. I'm going to open those in VS Code here. We have left pad module, left pad service. I'm going to get those side by side, and I'm going to open another module that we have. There's a test drivers module, so I can do the classic copy paste of the code in here because it's all boilerplate. And I'm going to rename test drivers module to left pad module over here. And this is going to be left pad service. I accidentally put two C's in service, so that's a thing that I'm going to try to fix. When in doubt, just type it again. And we don't need this service. Left pad module installs one service called left pad service. That seems about correct for left pad. Left pad service itself is just going to be class that extends base service, which all services extend. It's going to have an init method that probably won't do anything, and it's going to implement an interface, which we do with a static member here called implements. The method is going to be called pad, and it's going to be a function that we've yet to define. Our service is also going to register an interface, and one place that I know we do that in is in Pewter AI module. So if I go to Pewter AI / Pewter AI module, we'll see that the first thing that it does is it registers a service, which is called AI interface service. An AI interface service, which is in the same directory, has at the very top, actually the only thing it does is register these common interfaces that different AI implementations will use, like the Peter text-to-speech interface, an interface for image generation, chat completion, and optical character recognition. All I need is one of these, just as an example. So I'm going to copy that and bring it over to left pad service. This event, driver.register.interfaces, is emitted to the services container event bus when the driver service is ready to receive interfaces. The name of our interface is going to be left pad, left-pad, and the description is going to be something like pad a string so it reaches a specified length, and it's going to have one method called pad, and that description will be the same thing. This is the odd case of an interface that implements exactly one method, which is actually the case for most of them, it turns out, which is an interesting fact. The parameters are going to include, let's see, what does left pad have? It has a string of type string and a length of type number, and it has a character. This is also going to be of type string, and it is an optional string. The types that we use in interfaces are generally high-level types. So, for example, I have number instead of integer, and this might have a subproperty. For example, signed or integer. Maybe integer true could be a parameter on number because it's a constraint of that argument. It's totally reasonable for there to be property types like email. I could have email type email. We don't have an email type right now, but that is totally valid with the intended architecture of drivers to have parameters of those sorts of high-level types. The result from Hello World, or not Hello World service, left pad is probably going to be a string. I think that makes sense. And now we just need to implement this interface. We have established that this interface exists. We added an implementation of it, except I did it wrong. We need the name of the interface here, and then the method. The method is pad. And I need this closing bracket that I didn't copy over when I grabbed that. So we define left pad as an interface, and we implement the left pad interface, method pad, and our arguments are going to come to us as an object. I'm going to use destructuring here with stir, lang, and character, but you might also have an object parameter and just reference object.stir or object.len. And now I'm going to do the really difficult feat of implementing left pad from scratch with no references, which it turns out is you change length to len minus stir.length. There's an edge case there that I'm going to fix in a moment, and then you do ch.repeat len plus stir. Not super complicated. The edge case here is if len is less than 0, then len equals 0. Maybe repeat handles that edge case, in which case that line of code might not be necessary either. Now we have a left pad service, and we need to export it and import it in the respective places. Left pad service needs to be exported here, and the module, left pad module, is probably already importing it. Yep, I already used destructuring here, just assuming that exports looks like that because I use that convention in a lot of places in case there's utility functions or something related to a class that we want to throw into the same file. Say what you will about that. And now it needs to go into this exports.js file in source/backend. This makes this an optional module that we can choose to install in any instance of the Pewter kernel. When we start Pewter, it's usually through this run self-hosted.js file. So if I want my left pad driver to run by default in these instances, I would add it here. Add module, new, left pad module. So now the kernel should boot with the left pad module installed, and if I didn't make any mistakes, we should be able to reboot the server now and make a request. So I'm going to Control-C the server, start it again, and it looks like I do have an error. It can't find the module left pad service in left pad module. This might get a little confusing because these are two different meanings of the word module. This is a node module, and then this is a left pad service is a service, not a module, not a Pewter module. And left pad module is a Pewter module. Alright, so let's see why that's happening. I should be able to figure that out just by going to left pad module. It turns out this was a typo. Left pad service is spelled left pad servica, which is not, I don't think that's a word. So I'm going to go ahead and rename that to left pad service. Now we have, I'm not sure why that's happening. There's another funny mistake I made. I think when I saw exports without module dot behind it, I thought that the editor was just scrolled to the right a bit and it was cut off. I'm assuming that's what happened. That is a really funny error. Now after fixing a couple of errors, it seems to be running. I'm occasionally getting an invalid auth signature error, but I think that's because of a Google Chrome instance somewhere else on the laptop trying to access a different Pewter instance. This was the call we made before to the Hello World driver, and I'm going to change this to the left pad driver. Driver left pad, interface, left pad, and method pad. The arguments are going to be stir, a string, and I'm going to pad it to a length of, how much is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 8. I'm going to say 10, so we should have 2 spaces at the beginning of our string. Success false. No implementation is available for left pad. I wonder why. There's one more thing I forgot to do in here. I made a mistake. This is test assets. That's what I copied. But the actual name of the service should be left pad. That's going to be the thing that we put in the driver parameter in inspect element. So now if I reload the server and I try that again, now it says we can't read properties of undefined repeat. That's probably because my argument name is not the same as what I put there. And we can see indeed that that looks correct to me actually. I'm not sure what's up with that. Parameter stir, that's in the interface. The character. ch equals ch. Or that. Now that I've fixed a couple of bugs, we can try running this again and see what happens. And now it says success true. We can see that the result is a string with 2 spaces at the beginning. And there you have it, a left pad driver. If we look at the documentation for Pewter.js, we can see there's a bunch of AI methods, and these are all implemented using Pewter drivers. Now, unfortunately, just adding a Pewter driver doesn't mean we have the method available in Pewter AI. We would still have to use fetch. So I might record a video later describing how to add some new functionality to Pewter.js itself as well if we wanted a driver for common use cases. As always, thanks again for watching and learning a little bit more about Pewter. Hopefully you find some really cool uses for Pewter drivers and are able to make a really cool driver yourself. Until next time.